Hey, it's Wednesday, which means it's time for another episode of the Leadership Toolkit. Thank you, everybody, for taking the time to tune in and join me. Man, I just appreciate everybody that's tuned in each week, and we hope to offer a whole lot of value. As you know, this is your definitive leadership growth podcast. It's your opportunity to tune in, listen to awesome leaders from all different verticals of business and all over the world. And today is no exception. I have the one and only amazing Brad Englert on the show. He's an author, an advisor, a technologist. He's been involved in business leadership and management for over 40 years. He started a company to do leadership and consulting, or was involved with Accenture for 22 years and then was a partner for 10, has been involved with the University of Texas at Austin. And I am lucky enough to have him on the show with us today. So, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Brad Englert, thank you for joining me today on the Leadership Toolkit.
Thanks for inviting me.
Absolutely. So, if you would, Brad, take a few minutes. Obviously, you have here too. You're the founder of Brad Englert Advisory. You've been involved with all kinds of companies. You've consulted with some amazing firms, some amazing people. I just would like to go back for a minute and talk about how did you get started? What's your background in leadership and management? And let's start there.
Well, I was lucky enough after graduate school to join Arthur Andersen, which became Andersen Consulting, which became Accenture. And when I started, there were 40,000 consultants, and now there are 700,000 people working for Accenture. So tremendous growth. The culture of the firm was one of focus, mentoring, coaching, and training. It was kind of baked into the DNA. They have a huge global training center outside of Chicago. And every year, we were encouraged to build relationships with our peers, with our clients, with our boss, and as manager with my direct reports. And even as a senior partner, I was expected to mentor and coach and teach in our training center. And that just is something that I valued. And when I got to the university, I had the opportunity to work with an organization that had kind of a fire drill culture that rewarded heroics. And I really needed to change the central IT group to be more customer focused and proactive. And it took more than a year, but working with my direct reports and um, the organization as a whole, 330 people, about a $40 million budget. Uh, After about a year, we were slowly able to change the culture into more of a proactive uh, customer service orientation.
That's awesome. So do me a favor. I want to pick on a few things that or I pick up on a few things as you're chatting here. First off, I mean, obviously spent time managing some very large organizations or large to me and consulting and so forth. One of the things that you said when you got involved at the university, they had, and if I'm correct on this, or correct me if I missed it, you got involved with the university, they had a fire drill culture.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Expand on that for me, because I think oftentimes as leaders, we are like knee deep in a fire drill culture, but we're so absorbed in it that we can't see what's going around it, going
Mm-hmm.
on around us. So when you say a fire drill culture, what do you mean by that, Brad?
Um, Typically, the diagnosis would be no planning, no operating budget, no capital budget, and therefore things break without much predictability. And if you have a situation where things break, they're more costly to fix than if you actually proactively maintain them and have a
Sure.
replacement cycle. And so one of the first things we did year one was create a capital budget and an operating budget. And that helped us avoid issues. So my first year was 2009, H1N1 swine flu, and the leadership asked, could we go online? And the answer was no, because our equipment was 8 to 10 years old. The learning management system, which all 54,000 students use and 4,000 faculty, was a 1990s uh, tool that was buggy and really not very scalable. Our email system was 18 years old, custom written. So students had a maximum of 50 emails, faculty 100. Well, you couldn't go online. And so
Wow.
that scared me.
Well,
And so over the
I,
8
I
years,
just
we,
before we get way off, I want to ask a
yeah,
question. I'm sorry
sure.
to interrupt you, but I'm like,
No, no.
it's shocking to me. And so as we get in here, you're saying 2009, so we're talking 15 years ago.
Mhm.
15 years ago, everybody's online. Like we're past the AOL era,
Right.
and you're talking about this is the University of Texas at Austin. Like
Mhm.
to me, I'm thinking that's a massive educational entity, and you're saying,
70,000 people.
yeah, and you're saying, well, they're using that 1991 email tech, right? And so that is just wild to me. So I'm sorry, please finish your thought.
Oh, so over the course of 8 years, we moved as many of the IT services we could to the cloud. And so our learning management system was modern, cloud based, secure, picked by the faculty and students. So when I presented it to the president, we want to move to a new learning management system, he asked, well, what do the faculty and students think? Sir, they unanimously recommended we move to this new tool. They hated the old one. So
Right.
the old one was so clunky. And it took us 2 years because we're so big. And
Sure.
some courses are only taught every other year. But at the end of that 2 year period, the vice provost and I, who our organizations worked together to help with the transition, which affected everybody, we received an email from all the contacts in the schools and colleges. And I literally covered my eyes because it was to the president. And I thought, oh, we're in trouble.
We're cooked. Yeah.
We irritated everybody. But the fact of the matter is, it was such a better tool that there was a natural pull from the students and faculty. And all those contacts actually sent an appreciation to the president of the way our organizations work together to help them through the transition, including asking the new vendor to make changes that would be applicable to a university of our size. Well, my traditional uh, legacy vendor didn't care about us at all. He'd show up once a year for his maintenance check, which was always 10% more than last year.
Hmm.
And the new company, the senior vice president for sales, called me every month for 2 years to make sure everything was going. And he said, you've got the red phone on your desk. Anything goes wrong, you call me directly. And, he cared about us. And
Sure.
it was mutually beneficial because he knew if he had Austin on his product, that all the other Research One universities would follow. And that's exactly what happened. And then we moved to Teams for email for staff. We moved to YouTube branded Gmail for student email. We moved to Box for file sharing. We moved to ServiceNow for help desk. We moved to Qualtrics, which is a survey tool that's very secure, federal government approved. And then we moved to Workday HR payroll. When it got to March 2020, my successor was able to increase the VPN, increase the Zoom, and 70,000 people went online to work, study, teach, and do research. And, that was just fulfilling for me because
Sure.
compared to 2009, when we couldn't do anything like that, they were
Right.
in really, really good shape. But it took 8 years to do it.
That's crazy. So, a couple of things, and I know you've watched an episode or two of the show, and one of the things I always try to do is sort of recap because I want to make sure I know as you're sharing some of this, I pick out some of these tidbits, and it's like, again, we get so involved as people in our businesses that sometimes we can't see the forest for the trees, right? We're busy
Mm.
running through it, and we're busy doing all these things, and to really listen in to some of the things that you're sharing here, you said at the beginning, you said, well, what, because this all stemmed from just the question, what's the fire drill culture? You said, well, there's no planning, no budget. When stuff breaks, it's more costly to repair. I think one of the things to point out too is it's that constant, you're running all the time because you're in repair mode. You
Right.
never get the chance to be in maintenance mode. You never get the chance to be in growth mode, is what I'm hearing from you. And so one
And
of the
the
things,
and it drives the customers crazy. They don't like
yeah.
fire drills and unpredictability.
Well, and it sounds to me like too, one of the things you really looked at is you're dealing with two sets of customers. And I think we need to realize that. Yes, we have the customers, like you're dealing with the University of Texas. The students are the customers, but
Hmm.
you're also dealing with all this faculty and staff and teachers and professors that are there. Those are customers as well. They have to be able to engage and function in an effective way for people.
Hmm.
And
I I
so
had a woman. Oh, go ahead.
no, no, no. Yeah,
Well,
I
I had
think
a
that
woman who worked for me who said, "What I appreciate about being reported to you is you often would slow me down. I wanted to rush to the solution. I wanted to leap over tall buildings, but you made me slow down and really understand what the problem is. And sometimes it solves itself. You know, if you rush too
sure.
quickly, you miss it."
No, that's true. So a couple of things, and I want to see if you can break this down for me. I said, well, so what did you do? Like, how do you get out of that fire drill culture? You said the first thing you had to do was make a budget. I
Mm.
have to imagine, I have to think they had some sort of budget. Were they just not utilizing it? Or like you said, they were dealing with this vendor that was like, the stuff's there. I don't really care. And nobody was pressing or leaning into them. So you said, okay, once we made the budget, or you updated the budget, I imagine there was, one of those two lines. What are the next two steps? If I'm trying to break through, trying to fix stuff all the time, trying to patch stuff all the time, trying to be right involved in the middle of it, what would you say after making the budget were the next two things that you did to break out of that culture?
Well, I'm going to zoom us the other direction and say
Okay.
before we did the budget, we created the first ever strategy for information technology on campus. And we talked to 300 people on campus, all the leadership, all the deans, all the VPs, president, provost, faculty, undergraduate students, graduate students. We had to feed them pizza, but they shared their feedback. And the number one priority was we need IT governance. We don't know how decisions are made, who makes them, why they make them. So we
Mm,
established a governance structure that allowed faculty and students to make decisions, that allowed technical people on campus to help us make technical decisions,
sure.
and have the operational people help us with the operational decisions. And um, that strategy identified the need to replace these old systems. And so it was really the strategy that drove the budget, and that was updated every year.
Gotcha. Okay, so step one, and two things I'm picking out of that was step one is take the time to make a strategy. So often we dive into it, especially on the
Mm-hmm.
outside. If you're somebody coming into leadership, then you're like, man, I got all these ideas, and you just dive into the ideas without actually taking the time to write them down. The second thing that I heard you say that is super powerful, and I hear this from great leaders all the time, is they go out and they talk to people.
Mm-hmm.
You went out and you talked to students, you went out and talked to faculty, you went out and had a conversation with the people that it's going to affect the most. So it's not about just you designing, hey, we've got this strategy, and so we're going to go implement it, and you're going to love it
Right.
and suck it
Yeah,
up and take it,
that's
right?
right. Mm-hmm.
You actually talked to people and took the time to listen. And I love the fact, Brad, Brad, that you said, well, I want to go the other direction, because I'm thinking,
Mm-hmm.
okay, step one's make the budget. Even now, right? Guilty
Mm-hmm.
as a leader, as a listener, I'm going, okay, step one's make the budget, and then you go forward. And you're like, well, no, step one is make the strategy. Step two is talk to the people. Step three is probably make the budget, right?
Right.
And then you
And
then you
updated
can make
every year.
and yeah, and then update it every year. So it's one of those circular pieces, right? Okay, hey, I do these things, and then I got to go back and revisit it. It's never just a one-stop shop and one and done type of deal, is what I'm
So
hearing
when
from
I got to the university, I met with this professor who had been there for 40 years,
you. Okay.
electrical engineer, kind of a crusty, cranky guy. But I'd
Okay.
worked with him on a statewide network implementation 15 years prior. So we had a success behind us. And I said, okay, give me some advice. He goes, get out of the office and tell people you give a damn. And that was the best advice because you're not hiding in your office, you're not hiding behind the screen. And I would meet with my peers across the university, the VP for public safety, the
Mm-hmm.
VP for facilities, the VP, the athletic director, um, the vice provost for curriculum. And well, why would I do that? Well, public safety, it was a matter of when something would go wrong, not if something would go wrong. And
Sure.
over the course of my tenure, we had a bomb scare, we had a shooting, we had a murder. Um, the bomb scare, I'm out on the mall with just my phone. But we had a standard operating procedure that my direct reports would get on a conference call with his direct reports, public safety, including the police. They're connected to the executive leadership, and we basically worked the bomb scare from the mall. They wouldn't let me in the building, so I couldn't
Well,
do that.
sure. Yeah, no, that makes sense.
But and I would meet with the VP for public safety every month, and we talk about what are the big events coming, commencement, 103,000 people in the football stadium. He had 50
Wow.
people working it. I had 50 people working it. Um, and we just really bonded. He went to the Ohio State University. That was one of my best clients. And he had all this Ohio State memorabilia. We just hit it
Sure.
off. I mean, from day one, because I loved that university, and he loved it. And vice provost for curriculum. If I hadn't gone to talk to her, I wouldn't have known how frustrated she was with the old learning management system. And it was her organization and working together because had an organization that helped faculty use tools in the classroom. So if, if I hadn't gone to talk to her, she'd just be frustrated for several years.
Sure.
So, it's just getting out there 16 million square feet of facilities. They all have IT. So I better be working with them.
Yeah. So here's a couple things. One, time always gets away from me on these shows. I get into having a conversation, and I flashed some of this on the screen. But I want for anybody that may be listening to the podcast later, or if you're tuned in and watching, whether it's on YouTube or Spotify or whatever your flavor may be. Couple things. One, to connect with Brad, you can check out bradenglert.com. That's BRADENGLERT.com. You connect with him there. He's got all of his links to stuff. I will make sure and include links to all of Brad's socials and the other items in the show description and the show notes. Also, you can connect with him on LinkedIn. Comes right up if you put in Brad Englert, but I will spell this one out for you. If you go to linkedin.com/n/BRAD dash ENGLERT dash, and then it's 3B886B21. It's got some of those letters and numbers after the name. But if you just put in Brad Englert and you spell it right, he comes right up. And then one last thing for the people that are tuned in, our regular listeners, if you go to bradenglert.com/toolkit, bradenglert.com/toolkit, then you can get, sign up for some spiffs and bonuses. You said there's a free sample of your book, Spheres of Influence. Is that correct, Brad?
Yep, that's right. Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah. So make sure and check that out. You probably just have to, go to that link, put in your email. You can get a free sample of his book, which is right over his right shoulder there, Spheres of Influence. So make sure and check those out, Leadership family. A couple things I want to hang on here too, Brad, as you're talking about. One of the things that you brought up earlier, you said, hey, when we got this new service provider, and the way that I took it was customer service actually became a thing. It wasn't just somebody showing up, checking the box and going year to year. And you said he called me every month for 2 years. You were engaged in conversation with him. You had that relationship. You said just a moment ago when what'd you say, the crusty guy that you were working
Professor.
with said,
Yeah.
get out of your office and go. And I've heard it in my former business and management roles. You got to manage people while walking around. They need your
Yep.
presence. There's no replacement for humanity.
That's
And so you said, I met with people, I built relationships. And I know one of your claims to fame, it's so crazy to me because people often, and I'm a data nerd, I'm an IT guy. So often IT guys and that sales personality, that relationship piece, where you're talking about, going out and connecting, that's not a common skill or a common trait
Mhm.
in IT and engineering and so forth. And I'm not saying that to be mean. Anyone who's listening in my audience and maybe listening to me state that. But one of the things that you've stated in one of your claims to fame is relationship building is a skill you can master and you don't have to
Mhm.
be born with it.
That's right.
So can you expand on that for me a bit, Brad? If I, yeah, I want to establish better relationships as a leader, as a boss, as a counterpart, as a worker. How can you just expand a little bit and let's go there?
Sure. So you need to be strategic and intentional about who you're building relationships with. Some are obvious. Your boss. You're going to meet with your boss probably once a week. Your direct reports. I meet with my direct reports once a week in their offices. Well, why do I do that? So their people see me walking through the workplace and meeting with their leader. And uh, in all relationships, there are really three things you need to adhere to. One is understand their goals and aspirations. Two, set and
Okay.
manage expectations, which I was not good at early in my career. I got better later in my career. And then third, genuinely care about their success. So with customers, you don't have to meet with all your customers. What are your best customers? What are your most, um, where have you had success? Because success breeds success. With my vendors, I looked at all the vendors and I said, where are we spending the most money? And then I would reach out to them and on a quarterly basis meet with the account rep and their boss. And then we would talk about what's coming, what are the futures, how's the relationship working? Is there something you have coming down the line that will help us be successful? And um, it was intentional. So I would seek to understand what they were trying to achieve, and I would share with them what we were trying to achieve, and that became a mutually beneficial uh, relationship.
Sure. And sorry, it caught me typing. I always try and share this stuff in the sides. You said, "Hey, understand goals and aspirations, two
Mm-hmm.
expectations, set expectations," which you struggled with. I think a lot of people in management and leadership do struggle with expectations. Like we
Mm-hmm.
assume, well, if I got here and I have these expectations myself, then you should just know, right? And you should just
Yeah.
do the thing.
Well, I have two phrases. One is people are not mind readers. So if you're the boss, you tell them what you want. And the other phrase is use your words. So if you want something, you need to ask for it. If your boss isn't giving you the resources, you need to ask for it.
Sure.
If your people need something, they need to have the feel safe enough to ask for it. I had a new direct report show up. He inherited this big project that was supposed to go live in the summer. And after he looked at it, he said, I don't think I can do this with quality. And I said, well, thank you for having the courage to raise that. It took us
Right.
40 years. It took us 40 years to get this way. Another 6 months doesn't matter. We're going to
Right.
do it with quality. But he used his words. He didn't just suffer in silence.
Well, it just helps put it in perspective too. Like when you're saying, "Hey, it took us 40 years to get here," 6 months. So often we're worried about handling it right now. We've said that
Mm-hmm.
several times. When you're saying, this guy came to you and said, "I don't think I can do that," I think that does take it takes a lot of vulnerability. It takes a lot of
Yeah.
guts to
It
to
was
say
his
that to your
first,
boss.
his first, probably his second week on the job. So, that was great.
Well, even at the second week on the job, the crazy thing is he felt comfortable and confident enough either in himself, in the position, and in you to
Yeah.
come and say that. And
So I had this boss who was a type A personality,
sure,
and she always had things sounded urgent. So I'm trying to leave one night to have dinner with my wife, and literally 5 o'clock, the phone rings, and it's the partner. Brad, I need a white paper. Oh, white paper. And I was kind of scared, but I said, whoa. I didn't say no because that would set her off. I said, whoa.
sure,
And I said, when do you need this white paper? Oh, let me check my calendar. I need it in 2 weeks. Okay. How many pages do you want this white paper to be? Oh, 3 pages. I was thinking 10. Do you have an example of a white paper that I could just, yeah, ask David. I did one XYZ Corporation 10 years ago. Well,
Okay.
guess what? I went home and had dinner with my wife. Now, before I learned to say whoa, I would have called her, canceled dinner, upsetting her and me. I would have stayed up all night, and I would have
Sure.
delivered a 10-page white paper the next day and get yelled at. A lose, lose, lose situation. So
Yeah.
after I learned to say whoa, I never missed a vacation. I never missed a training. I never missed a doctor's appointment. I went to the school play. It's just you have to just set and manage those expectations.
Well, and I think that's really, I mean, just the fact and the way you're saying it, you're like, hey, I didn't say no, I said whoa. It's like
Mhm.
just slow down for a second. I think so often people are just headed forward with a force, especially when you get to that level. When we're in a position of leadership and management that we're what would be considered upper management or a CEO role and that kind of stuff, and someone's coming to you saying, I need something, it's easy for us to slip into that, urgent and have to have it now mentality. I know, I mean, I've been there.
Yeah.
And the fact that you're saying, well, whoa, again, this is just like building relationships when you're talking about, when we were talking about that beforehand, and you're saying, hey, I got to understand goals, set expectations, care about their success.
Mhm.
The only way you can do that is ask genuine questions. I remember, gosh, I can't remember the name of the book now, but I remember Ogmandino. There's a quote from Ogmandino that says, there is no replacement for genuine caring. You can
Mhm.
baffle people with BS,
That's
but
right.
there's not a
That's right.
replacement for genuine caring. And so when you're saying, even in this other instance, you're saying, hey, let's slow down, whoa, and you're asking questions, clarifying questions, right, of
Mhm.
when do you need it, how much do you need it, what's this. And so it's one of those things that it's urgent, but it's not, it's so urgent that I got to cancel plans with my wife. Because how
Right.
much does that, let me ask you this, we were talking just a little bit beforehand. You've been married for some time, right? And like, how much pressure does that put and strain does that put, not just on the home relationship, but when you're stopping and canceling that stuff, what sort of stress and pressure does that create on your business relationships then too?
Well, I had a client one time who wanted me to work on this huge transformation project at Midwestern Research University of,
Sure.
comparable to UT Ogden. And I said, this is in October. I said, I'd love to come help you with this project. You have all the things in place to be successful. However, next June, I have a long planned vacation to Australia. I was an exchange student there in high school. Last year was my 25th reunion, but I missed it because of our work uh, happenstance. I, my wife and I had bought the tickets. We had the passports for the boys. I really need to go. And they said, well, it was with the CFO and the provost at lunch at the faculty club. And they said, well, sure, that's not a problem. So we get to May and meeting with our monthly update with the president. Mr.
Hmm.
President, wanted to remind you, as I have the last 3 months, and I'll be going to Australia next month, and I'll be away for 3 weeks, but Diane will be in charge, and it's really a good time for me to be away because things are going well. And the president's hand started shaking, and I slow-mo was canceling my vacation. Whoa! And the provost and CFO stopped me and said, Brad, hold on a second. Mr. President, when Brad joined us in October, he talked about this vacation. It's important to him and his family. We should uphold our commitment to let him go. Well, everything went fine. Diane did a great job. 10 years later, I'm back in that Midwestern city having dinner with the CFO and his spouse and my wife. And we talked about that. And he goes, Brad, when you were gone, the provost and I were scared to death. So my
Wow.
customer supported my vacation.
That's super powerful though. I mean, and I think that comes from you, again, through time and, tenure in business. You set the expectation early. So
Yep.
it wasn't like it's something you're dropping on them. You'd set the expectation, you were communicating it. The things that happen behind the scene, though, is you mentioned, hey, I've got this person, Diane, that's going to be in charge.
Mhm.
Something that I want leaders to pick up on from that, something that you need to hear, because we talk about this is one of those things you need to put in your toolkit, folks, is Brad had spent time growing, grooming, teaching the team so that he knew, hey, when I step out, this person's going to go in and fill my shoes. And so often it is very easy, especially this is one of those, not to uh, oh, I'm going to go there anyway. Young leaders come in and so often we think, well, I'm irreplaceable. It's got to be me that does it. I got to handle this. I got to do the training. I've got to do the budget. I have to make sure and manage these KPIs. And we've got all of these things on our plate. And the reality is
Mhm.
you can't handle all those things at 100%.
Right.
You end up
That's
failing because you're doing each one at 50% instead of investing in the people that are around you. And what I'm hearing you say is, hey, I invested in these people. So I already knew I'm stepping away. And
mhm.
even if that individual, and you said, hey, Diane did a great job. So I'm sure she ran it, 90 to 100% of what Brad Englert would have, right? Especially if she's tuned in and listening. She was 100%. The reality is we get these people on our team, and the reason you have them on the team is to grow them. The reason you
Mhm.
have them on the team is so you don't have to do everything yourself. I've heard it said, if you can get somebody to perform a task at like 80% or better
Mhm.
of what you can, then you give them the shot, right, Brad?
Yep. Well, I had a direct report who wanted to be a CIO someday. So when I went
There you
on
go.
vacation, guess who got the interim job? Because I went on vacation
Absolutely.
every year. And she is a CIO elsewhere. Other direct reports, brilliant engineer. They wanted to be a brilliant engineer. They didn't want to be a CIO. So you
Right.
just have to ask people what are they trying to achieve, and then help them get
I think that's really powerful. That statement you just made. Ask people what they're trying to achieve and then help them
there.
get there. And the reality is, like, even as you're saying it now, and you say it with a broad smile on your face, which I love. You said, hey, I had a direct report that wanted to be a CIO. The only way you can know that is through conversation and relationship, like
Yep.
real relationship with that person. And so you're like, okay, I'm going to earmark you, assuming they have the skill, or assuming they have the ability, the willingness to learn, to develop the
Mhm.
skills, because they may not have all the skills right now, right? We know that.
Good.
um
Well, one thing the firm did a really nice job with is giving me field promotions. They asked me to work in a manager role before I was a manager. They asked me
mm,
to work in a senior manager role when I was just a manager. They asked me to work in a partner role when I was a senior manager. And I looked at 22 years of annual reviews and just looked at the
mm,
way they put me in the right spot to grow and stretch. And it's a way to avoid imposter syndrome because you actually were a manager and
sure.
yeah, you're maybe 80%, but at least you get to exercise those muscles and understand, is this something I want to be doing? Because you might want to be an engineer and do technical stuff. You don't have to be a manager. So it was really something I tried to do at the university is give people stretch roles and, you know, allow them to. I had one network engineer who quit to go to a startup. I'm in Austin, Texas. We have all the multinational IT firms here. I can't compete on salary. So I said, look, if you don't like that, I don't say this to everybody, but if you don't like your new job, you can come back. And so 2 weeks, literally 2 weeks later, I get the call. He said, can I come back? He said, this startup is a zoo. Yeah, they gave me equity, but they do my dry cleaning and feed me because they don't let me go home. And so what I thought was helping
Jeez.
my family is actually hurting my family. And I'd
Right.
like to come back to an 8-hour day. He's still there 15 years later.
Wow. Yeah, there's a lot to be said about there's so much to be said about families and personal time, and especially like
Mm-hmm.
in business. And I would say, from my experience, that I can only speak from this position, you might agree with me, especially as men, like where I have always had the stance, we're called to be providers, and it's easy to go err on the side of, well, I'm pushing so I can provide. And like you're saying, this
Mhm.
this individual that you're connected with is, he says, well, they do my dry cleaning and feed me, but I can't. I mean, you don't see your family, which is why you're there in the first place.
Right. That's right.
So
That's right.
So a couple of reminders as we're kind of coming down the tail end here. For everybody watching, I put this on the screen again a few times. You can go to bradenglert.com/toolkit. If you want a free sample of spheres of influence, I would encourage you to check that out. Also, so that's you can connect with Brad on his website, but specifically they set up the link for this show for the Leadership Toolkit. If you want some sample of the book there, you can connect with Brad on LinkedIn. Make sure and you just search Brad Englert. It's BradEnglert, and you can connect with him on LinkedIn. I'll have more of his social links and website links. Link to the Amazon bestsellers, Spheres of Influence. Trip over my own words there sometimes. I'll make sure and have a link to that in the show notes in the description. So as we're coming on the back end of the show here, Brad, I want to ask you something. What do you do, because you manage and have managed just some massive organizations, and I think it takes a different mindset to manage that size of staff. You know, you're talking about a company with 330 people. Then you're talking about, hey, this large group of people you're managing at University of Texas. You talked about with Accenture. You said, hey, we got up to, was it 700,000 consultants?
Mhm.
It's a different mindset to manage on that scale. And so how involved, or how do you address, whether it's, you know, starting off in a smaller entrepreneurial business with 6 or 8 people up to 330, up to thousands? What happens when something goes wrong, somebody messes up, and you're at the top of the food chain? You're the leader, you're the manager, you're the tip of the spear. There's so many different ways to say it. How do you handle that when you know we as the company are the ones that messed up?
Well, first of all, there are two types of leaders I've run into. There's the imperial leader who knows everything and is the smartest person in the room. That's not me. I Then there are the team players who need all the help they can get from the smartest people in the room. And I like the team approach. And so part of that is you're still responsible and accountable for the success of the organization. So I mastered the art of apologizing for when things went wrong. You have 250,000 devices hooked to the network every day. What could possibly go wrong? A lot of stuff could
Right.
go wrong.
Yeah.
So, so my message to the organization was: it's not if things will go wrong, but when they go wrong and how we deal with them. And we got good at communicating quickly. Here's the situation. We're sorry. Here's what we're doing to avoid it in the future. And, you know, forgive us. Some people were upset at us on things that happened 10 years ago. And I'd go meet with them and say, that wasn't us. That's not how we work. So I want to apologize for that bad behavior in the past. But you need to let it go. We need to start looking forward and work together to be successful. And that worked. But sometimes you have to, get out there and have that discussion.
Again, comes down, what I'm hearing is you're willing to get out there and have the discussion. You seem to be a very forward moving leader. Like, you're like, hey, I just get out there. I just go out and I talk to people. I go out and I communicate with people. I mean, that seems to be one of the trademarks of your success as we've sat here and had the conversation today.
Oh, and I asked my direct reports to do the same. And if they have 8 to 10 people they meet with every month, and I have 7 direct reports, we have this network built across this huge organization. And it's
Sure.
like a nervous system, because we hear things of what's going well, what's not going well. I had one woman read the manuscript. She said, "You didn't put my story in." What are you talking about? She was a direct report. The time you forced me to go meet with this person who hated us. Oh, yeah, I forgot about that. You said you'd rather have her in the tent than outside the tent throwing rocks at us. Yeah, that's right. So she met with this woman who hated us because of past bad behavior, you know,
Sure.
from the fire drill culture.
Sure.
And over 7, 8 months, that person became an advocate for us. And her boss, who also was upset because of past bad behavior, he became an advocate.
Well, there's so much power. I think, especially now, people, any people, humans, leaders, employees, business people, husbands, wives. There's so many of these relationships, both personal and professional, that we're involved in. And you end up with two ends of the spectrum. One is, well, people that apologize for everything, and that just drives me nuts. They're like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry that I did this.
Don't
Well, it
over
becomes water.
apologize.
Yeah, they over apologize. Well, because they're like, oh, I'm so sorry this happened, and like you hear it all the time, right? But it becomes empty and watered down because it's like, okay, this person's going to screw up, and then they're just going to apologize again, and then they're going to repeat this, like you said, past bad behavior. And then you so often have a second group of people that never apologize. They'll never admit wrongdoing. And I want people to pick up on this. One of the things Brad said, he says, okay, I went and met with these people and I apologized for past bad behavior and reminded them that wasn't us. And I think so often people lead with that wasn't us and they forget the apology. Is that fair?
Yep.
And so I do want people to hear that. Like, there is so much weight that can be lifted when you just own the thing and apologize for whatever it is. If it was you as the leader, if it was one of your direct reports, you have to own that. They work for you. If it was, as you're mentioning, hey, past leadership or past company influence, but if it's yours now, when you lead with the apology rather than the excuse, it is so healing in relationships, both business and personal.
Yeah.
That's one thing I'm hearing you say. So, hey, we're just about at the 45-minute mark. I'm gonna give one more reminder for everybody. Couple reminders. One, check out bradenglert.com. And Brad, I'm going to ask you, but I'll ask you in advance. So kind of some final thoughts to take us out of the show. So I'll give you a second to think as I'm final thoughts to sum up the show. So for anybody listening, it's bradenglert.com. It's BRADENGLERT.com. It's got all of his links, linked to his Amazon bestseller, Spheres of Influence. Sums up, I mean, I don't know how you could sum it all up, the experience that you have, and even in the conversation that we've had, and fit it into one book. I think it's awesome. As we've talked, he is the founder of Brad Englert Advisory. So you want to talk to him about any of that, connect with him on LinkedIn. You can search for Brad Englert, save the spelling one more time. And then also while you're over at bradenglert.com, just type in bradenglert.com/toolkit. You can get a free sample of Spheres of Influence, and I would encourage you to check it out and buy it. So Brad, any final thoughts to take us out today, sir?
Be strategic and intentional. You don't have to meet with all your customers, all your vendors, all your peers, but who do you need to help the most? And then start small. Just start with your boss. What are their goals and aspirations? Be good at setting and managing expectations and genuinely care. You don't have to do all the relationships all at once. Just start small and practice, and it'll become easier over time. Be intentional.
So good, man. Hey, do me a favor. If you would hang out for just a minute with us, and I'll go ahead and take us out. Thank you so much, Brad, for joining me today on the Leadership Toolkit.
My pleasure.
Right. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, that is going to bring us to a close for another episode of the Leadership Toolkit with my new friend, Brad Englert. Man, what a good show and what a good conversation. I hope that if you're out there, whether you're listening to the show or watching the show on whatever platform, I hope you feel like you gained as much insight and wisdom just into grassroots, on the ground, face forward leading as I did, because I think it's just really, really powerful. Some of those things, and Brad summed it up amazingly. He said, be strategic, be intentional. I think when you do that and you lead from your heart, it's easy to get out there and connect with people and build relationships. And there's just too much for me to even just sit and go through here. I'll make sure and include all this in the show notes. I would encourage you, as we do each week, one, I respect your time. I love the fact just people are tuning in, and the wisdom that they're gaining from the show. I get great compliments every week on the people that I've interviewed, and I'm so blessed to be connected with many of these folks in business. I would encourage you, a couple things. One, I'm going to ask first, please throw some thumbs up on the show, share the show. That's how this podcast, that's how any podcast, any indie content creator grows. So I would appreciate if you would do that for us. Second is, most importantly, if you know somebody that could benefit from the knowledge we talked about today, share this show with them. Be, as Brad was saying, be strategic, be intentional, share this show with somebody that needs to hear the message. You can sit there and go, oh, hey, I heard this great show and let me share you these tidbits. Or you could share this and say, you got to listen to this and take notes and tune in. So thank you, everybody, for taking the time to tune in and join me today on the Leadership Toolkit. You're awesome. I appreciate you very much. Until we speak next, stay great. We'll see you next week. Like I said, share the show, throw some thumbs up. Talk to you soon.